because I do want to bring in Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona, who's one of more than 36 Democrats who will not be in attendance for tonight's State of the Union address. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. My pleasure.
So talk to me about what's behind this decision, because we know that leadership has said, look, if you are going to be in the chamber, please listen, follow decorum. Why did you decide not to be there at all tonight?
Well, because the State of the Union speech is actually not going to be the State of the Union. It's going to be a speech full of lies and excuses. And I'd rather spend that time with my family. I have 3 young kids. I'd rather do productive things for my community. This president does not know how to talk about the country, does not know how to fight for the country. He only knows how to fight for himself. And we see this all the time. Instead of actually taking the out when it came to the tariff decision by the Supreme Court, he's going to double down. What does that mean for everyday Americans? It's going to cost that you're talking about an extra $1,000, $1,200. We've already paid $1,000 to $1,200. None of them are getting their refunds. Big corporations will eventually get their refunds, but Americans are going to hurt, and all he wants to do is just double down. People are hurting. People feel it every day. This country is sicker and poorer because every decision President Trump has made, and he's only going to continue pushing that. This whole massive deportation plan that is now racially profiling Americans, detaining them until they can prove their citizenship, killing American citizens in the streets of our country, was all paid for on the backs of cutting Medicaid for millions and millions of Americans. He's not going to talk about solutions to that. He's not going to talk about solutions about how to stop the chaos that he moved from the border out to the chaos into our communities. He will talk about excuses. He will talk about grievances, but he will not talk about where this country needs to go, and that's what Americans really need to be hearing right now.
Well, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona has a slightly different take than you. I want to play what he said about why he is attending tonight's address and get your reaction on the other side. Take a listen.
This guy thought I would be in jail, maybe right now. Wants to send me to prison. I'm going to continue to do my job, and I'm going to be sitting there right in front of him. And, maybe he'll notice, maybe not. But I feel it's my obligation, to be there.
What do you make of that argument that as a sitting senator, you just have an obligation to be there, whether you like the president or disagree with every single thing he says, as you are laying out?
Well, listen, this is the difference between me and Mark. He is a pilot. I'm a Marine. That man will be in a cockpit and both engines will be going out and he's going to land that plane, right? I'm a Marine. I know when to get in, when to get out, and sometimes I know there's some very futile fights. I respect Mark's decision. I'm sure he respects mine. We have better things to do at our time, and we're going to basically hear the same message. The message of a president does not care about this country. He's using the country to basically enrich themselves, and we're all becoming poorer because of it. And this State of the Union speech, whether you're there or not, is not going to change that trajectory.
Let me ask you, because last year Democrats were open to the criticism that the protests that they enacted seemed to be in disarray. Everyone was doing something a little bit different. Do you run the risk of that again this year, given that some Democrats are going to be attending rallies, others will simply be boycotting the speech, some might walk out in the middle of the speech? Are you concerned about that?
No, that's a bunch of insider baseball talk of, a bunch of us people here in D.C. and, the talking heads. What you will be hearing is about Americans that still, no matter what comes from this speech, are going to have to pay higher costs for groceries, for example, for tariffs that are not just, costing more, but are also costing our jobs. Our manufacturing base, our employee has decreased since tariffs have started. People are poorer because of this man. People in Arizona, hundreds of thousands of Arizonans are now looking for affordable health care because they could not get this president to take any leadership when it comes to expanding and supporting the extension of the Obamacare subsidies and or protecting Medicaid. People are going to be suffering and hurting from that. And there are millions and millions, especially of Latinos in this country right now, that are questioning whether they can leave their home again without passports, without birth certificates, because this administration under Stephen Miller has basically greenlit every opportunity to be racially profiling Latinos. So that is not going to be the antics or whatever you want to call them from the past are not going to be the cause of what people think about. They're thinking about how this administration has affected them personally. People are scared, people are sicker, and people are poorer because of this administration. And again, no matter what this president says, it's not changing.
Senator, let me ask you about Democrats' message heading into the midterms, because if you look at the latest polling, the Democratic Party actually gets lower approval ratings than Trump does. 33% trust Democrats to handle the country's biggest problems. Compare that to 37% for President Trump. It's a narrow margin, but how do you turn that around, Senator?
Well, we're not running against Trump. He's not on the ballot. That certainly has an electoral effect. Number two, look, elections matter. And when the election happens, what you've seen in the past, especially in 2018, for a good example, is that people start deciding that they want to see a balance against this president. They start understanding that, again, this president is not looking out for their best interests. He's using government to corrupt himself, his family, and to enrich his family, I should say. And they're going to find that the Democrats are the party that's there to turn this around. We are going to ensure that this country has a prosperous future. You have a chance at the American dream, and that government is not going to be just another, ATM that could be robbed by politicians like it's happening right now under this president.
Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, a moderate, of course, who was recently elected, is going to deliver the Democratic response. What do you want to hear from her tonight? What's a win for her and for Democrats tonight?
Well, look, I think we want to hear what Abigail ran on, and I was very happy to support her, and we campaigned for her in Virginia. She talked about cost of living. She talked about bringing stability to our community. She talked about actually fighting for a chance for your family, no matter what part of Virginia you are, to have a chance at the American dream. And that's why she was able to not just win, but really have a huge blowout and a very, very hard, potentially a hard year. And I think that message is what we're going to hear from her. One that specifically calls to the best of America, one that actually talks about what the future looks like, and the fact that this administration is not giving us a brighter future. If anything, it's only much dimmer. But with her leadership and leadership of the Democrats, we can move forward. We can put this country back on track, and certainly can move it away from the world that Trump has made.
Senator, just finally, the president is going to deliver his State of the Union address tonight. We believe it's the first in the midst of a partial government shutdown. How do you see the government reopening? Do you think that the president's speech will, to some extent, be a catalyst to finally get a deal and reopen the government completely?
Well, from my experience with Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is that he certainly is a catalyst, but he's never really a catalyst for compromise. The American public is very clear. They're sick of federal law enforcement invading our towns. In a city like Minneapolis, we only had 600, sworn police officers. There was 2,000 ICE agents and federal agents that were swarming that town, violating people's rights. Police officers, sworn police officers in Minnesota and Minneapolis were pulled over by ICE agents because they were black or Latino and forced to prove their citizenship. That's not professional law enforcement. Two American citizens gunned down in less than 2 weeks by agents who were just overly using power instead of actually being respectful of citizens' right to the First Amendment, are dead in the streets because this president has no accountability. We now have reports from yesterday that there was the ICE agents were deliberately, and it didn't surprise me at all, mistrained and undertrained. Cutting the training days down to about 45 days, specifically skipping over constitutional rights and duties, and slacking even on when it comes to weapons maintenance, something that is horrific for someone like me who actually served in combat. So the president needs to answer to that. The American public wants professional immigration enforcement. They want to stop the racial profiling of Americans. We want them to respect the Fourth Amendment, take your masks off, and act like we expect our professional law enforcement is in the towns. Until we see that, I think it's a very difficult situation, and I don't think this president knows how to lead out of that.
All right, Senator Gallego, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.